You, you are mute. You are mute. Do you want to unmute yourself? Probably on any time.
Okay.
There you go, mate.
Okay, let's start.
Are we live?
We are live.
Okay. Welcome everyone to Banter on Bikes with your hosts Zabs and Sof. Today we're going to be talking just an introduction into cycling and what it's really all about. Sof, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So, Sof, do you want to start off and just tell us about yourself and how you kind of got into cycling, or
sure.
just a quick brief before we start?
Yeah, sure. So I guess my sort of background in cycling was I've always been into sports, always been quite into football, tennis, running, athletics. Cycled a lot as a kid, and obviously going into sort of school and college. Stopped for a number of years, sort of 15 odd years. Actually got into a lot of football post work. Had a pretty bad sports injury, and then I was looking for something else to get into. And I thought, you know what, why not take up cycling? Then got a bike, and from there the rest was really history. Really, just as I rode more and more, just really enjoyed it. The health and fitness benefits were just amazing. And obviously, just meeting likewise, brothers who shared that kind of passion for cycling and fitness. And I think the rest was history, really.
Yeah, I think the same sort of me really. Started cycling about four years ago, and worked for local government, and I kind of came across a scheme. Well, my wife did, because she actually works within local government herself, and she pointed out to trialing a bike for 3 months for £10. And as a Memon, I don't know if you know Memons, but we're a little bit conjuice, as they call it. And so I thought, you know what a great little way to kind of test something out. And who's going to give me a bike for £10 for 3 months? And then, I kind of took advantage of that, really. So, I mean, happy to kind of segue into that, really, if you want.
Yeah, sure. And I guess, obviously, we're starting a new show now. And I guess the main themes of the show are really to help try and promote an interest, in cycling, fitness, sports, for the local kind of Muslim community. And, obviously for us, you and me, Zabs, we kind of fell into it, so to speak. But I know one key question that a number of people have been asking is, where can I get a bike? There's a pandemic on. There's a massive boom in cycling. People going down to their local stores, or online, finding a real shortage of bikes. So just that first sort of starting point. I guess what's some options? What can people look at? How can they source a bike?
Yeah, I think for me, I can only go by experience. But initially, there was a cycle to work scheme. So for £10, they gave me the opportunity to trial a bike for 3 months, and I was down for that. So I took that opportunity. They gave me a commuter type of bike, something similar to like the Santander bikes that you get within central London. And it had, I think, 21 gears, so plenty of gears for me to kind of get through difficult terrains. It had a rack on the back to tie items down, and it actually came with a kryptonite lock. So these are one of these specialized locks that you can clip into the bike. And they gave me a yellow safety jacket, right? One of those ones that you've got builders who wear, builders like those builder typical yellow safety jackets, visors, right? So they gave me one of those, and they gave me a front light and a rear light as well to go with it. So that kind of got me started into kind of going into cycling, really. And I kind of haven't looked back, but going to the initial stage of taking the bike, when I went to collect the bike, this is taking into consideration I haven't cycled since 15 years. 15 years, it's been a long time. So not really knowing how to use a bike was a bit of an issue, like in a sense of they had to explain, but they had people there to kind of provide technical support of how to kind of change a gear. There's gears at the front, and there's gears at the back, and how you kind of interchange between them when you would use a specific type of gear. So I remember my first experience, I was a bit cocky, to be honest. I took the bike out. It's like, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm collecting it from South London, making my way back to North London, only 15 miles, it's gonna be easy. And literally as I step out, within the first corner, going around the first corner, my chain gets stuck, and it gets stuck in such a way that it's not even just I can change out of gear. It's it's stuck within the mechanism itself. So it's I got off the bike, looked at it, tried to find out how to resolve this, couldn't figure it out. Shamefully, I had to go back. The mechanic had to spend about half an hour trying to get the chain out of how he was very confused and baffled how I managed to do that. But we got it done, and I had another go, made it home successfully. So it was good. I managed to get home, and I spent the next kind of 3 months using it to and from work. I found it really kind of beneficial. Some things that were a bit interesting, the rack at the back, I had a bit of an issue with the rack at the back, actually. I ended up getting so we've got showers at work, and I thought, you know what, let me use this rack. It's there, maybe use it. So I had my backpack, I had too many things in my backpack. So I thought, let me put my towel on the rack, right? So I thought I tied it up, put it on. But halfway into work, I almost fell over. I did fall over. And my towel actually got stuck within the chain.
Oh my
right?
God.
So obviously I hadn't tied the strap that comes with the rack properly, which was a bit of a nightmare. So that was an interesting kind of journey. The other thing I'd say is having the experience of renting out a bike for a month or 2 months, 3 months really gave me perspective of what I wanted from a bike, right, going forward, or what the things I liked about it, what I didn't like, what I, and I think another thing was I noticed that having, say, 21 gears on a bike was a little bit overkill for me on my commute. I mean, I've got hills going out of North London, but it was probably a little bit of an overkill, and I probably used a very handful of gears in the end. So that was something that I kind of learned after mashing up the gears in the first place. The other thing I would say, in terms of advice, I'd say it's good to have that option to be able to test out a bike, whether it's for a week, 2 weeks. It really helps kind of ease you into cycling again, but also allows you to make more informed decision-making skills.
Because I guess a number of our listeners.
And the other advice I'd
thinking, these bikes are, I'm looking at new bikes online. I'm going to the shops. It's quite a big outlay. Do I really want to spend, hundreds or even thousands of pounds? There is another way around it. So, but basically, what you're saying is, renting a bike might be a really good idea, right? You can try out different things.
I think
no obligation. As long as you're not too cocky, to your point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think renting is a very good way. or buying a very cheap secondhand bike, which will then allow you to kind of really get a feel of just getting comfortable on the saddle, getting around, getting a feel for the bike, what it involves. Do you even like the feel of going around on a cycle or not? And I think that will then kind of help form your decision making. And then I think, from that, it kind of segued quite nicely into like me actually buying my first proper bike, which was really quite interesting actually, because after 3 months or coming up to 3 months, I was like, look, my work actually does a scheme, a cycle to work scheme, which would then get me money off of a bike, a new bike. And I think the budget was, I think they had £1,000 at the time, or 1,000, yeah, £1,000 at the time.
Oh, I think we've got a call. Should we take the call? 1 sec.
Yeah, can do.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. You're on Ramadan FM.
Hello, I'd like to ask a question, please, to the Dab and Soft show.
Sure. What's your question?
I'd like to. Am I live on air?
You are live on air. Yes.
You are live.
Hello, it's Andy McNeil. Just to give you a bit of background, I'm a Scottish revert from Milton Keynes. And I'm a keen cyclist like the two of you.
Okay, that's very good to hear.
Basically, they used to call me the Flying Scotsman because you'd see me cycling around Willen Lake. So you'd see people calling me the Flying Scotsman. My question is more about, I had to stop cycling because a lot of chafing, and basically want to know what's a good method to stop chafing. Is talcum powder a good shout? Is what's a good method that you lot have found?
Okay, well, the first thing I'd say, that's a very good question. The first thing I'd say is, look, you've got to get a good pair of bib shorts, right? Good kind of equipment, right? There's nothing like having a decent pair of bib shorts that's going to make your contact point with the saddle as comfortable as possible. So that's the first thing, right? I think the second thing is, you got to spend a bit of time on the bike, right? A lot of people, I think, when they first start riding, they haven't ridden for a very long time or, at all. So you got to kind of ease into it, right? Get comfortable on the bike. Certain people do look into things like bike fits, and that can be quite expensive. But generally what I found is, just play it by ear, right? Sit on the saddle, see how it feels, make incremental kind of adjustments. But, the key point is you want to be as comfy as possible. And then, the third thing is obviously, as your point, talcum powder or, things. You can buy products like chamois cream.
Maybe olive Ule or whatever it's called as well.
I'm not sure about olive Ule.
Very helpful. So I had a second question, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So this is more for the Muslim cyclists. All right. I'm a Muslim revert, as I said myself, and obviously when I'm going out on a night cycling, you've got the halal haggis in the oven. What do you think is the best time during Ramadan to cycle? What would you say? Would you say after iftar? Obviously, it's dark, it's dangerous. What would you say?
Do you want to take that one?
Well, I mean, to be honest, just before this show started, me and Sof actually went out and we knocked out a 30-mile ride, fasted, and this is our second fasted ride actually. And to be honest, I think we found it quite straightforward. You'll actually surprise yourself what you're actually capable of doing during fasting. And you'll see many documentaries, whether it's basketball players, NBA professional players, football players who are breaking their fast midway. I think recently, it was a Liverpool game, if I'm not correct, where they were breaking their fast in the Champions League game halfway. So you'll find that you're actually able to do more than you think. It's more mental, but once you get out there, you're fine. But I think the key is not to kind of overexert yourself. Don't go for very high intensity work. Keep it, in a reasonable, moderate effort where you're getting a workout, but it's a little bit more time on the saddle, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And also, in terms of time, Andy,
timing.
To answer your question, I think it depends, right? Whatever you're comfortable with is really the answer. So some people are comfortable going out just before iftar, right? So then that's the last hour before iftar. Get a nice kind of walk or cycle, something gentle, get yourself in the zone. Then you have iftar. Some people are, comfortable going first thing in the morning, but then obviously you've got to have the whole day fasting. So, it really depends, right? But I think the key point to back up what Zabs is saying is you got to take it slow, and you got to do what you're comfortable with, right? And, alhamdulillah, it's amazing.
Thanks for that answer. I think for me, I try and motivate myself by by cycling to the local chicken shop in Wolverton. That's usually my little, more traditional tool. I mean, some people say I got thighs of steel like the Scottish Highlands, but that's a little cheeky one in there.
Must be all that fried chicken as well.
For letting me come on.
Yeah. No, thanks very much, Andy.
Thanks for your call. Best of luck with everything. Yeah, nice caller. Nice first
Very
caller.
nice caller. We did have a WhatsApp as well. Someone said I think they cycled to Paris on a £99 bike. So again, I think just to pick up on that thread, I mean, it shows you, key example there is you don't need to spend, cycling can be a very expensive sport, right? I think both Zabs and I sort of, cold end of that and, spent a fair bit of money on it. But you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah, actually, funny talking about when I was saying about taking out my first bike. So I think I had a voucher of £1,000. In my mind, I had a budget that I'm not going to spend more than 1,200 quid on a bike. Where I got that figure from, I don't really know, but that was the figure. I had 1,200 quid that I was going to spend. I was going to stick to it. I think I ended up going to a Giant shop, and the salesman was really good. He helped me out. He showed me some bikes, and I was like, no, I like this bike. And it was about 1,100, something like that. He goes, so we're checking out, taking the bike, putting the voucher through, and he says, you've chosen a very, very good entry-level bike. And I looked at him, I'm like, entry-level? What do you mean entry-level? I thought I came here and bought like the Ferrari's equivalent of bikes. He's like, mate, you haven't seen anything yet. You've got bikes that are, 5,000, 10,000, go into that world. So that was the first time, to be honest, that I opened up my eyes to what they can cost. But equally you can ride around on a bike for 150 quid, 250 quid, maybe something from Decathlon or somewhere like that, where you can pick up bikes. And we have people that we ride with, as you know, who have proven that actually.
Or the other point is, you can look at second-hand bikes, because again, a lot of people are put off by the initial outlay. They're like, maybe they're like us, who someone who rode as a kid, really enjoyed it, want to get back into it. They're put off by some of these crazy prices you can see out there. And to be honest, I think those prices just got worse during lockdown, and there's a restriction in supply, coming into the UK. Plus, a lot more people cycling, which is great to see. But obviously, one impact of that is the price of everything has gone up. So the other things you could do is look at things like Gumtree or Facebook, etc. You can find pretty decent second-hand bikes. Obviously, what we would say though is make sure you obviously fully vet that bike, and if there's an option to get a mechanic to have a look at it as well, then obviously do so, because there is that risk. We just need to make listeners aware of. Whereas obviously buying a brand new bike, you kind of get a bit more security there from the manufacturer.
But I think the key is before you go out and buy a bike, it's about having a sense of experience. And for me, I think being able to trial the bike, going back to that original point, trying the bike, testing it out, really made me understand from that experience what my criteria was. So I think for me, I had after using that bike, there were some of the issues that I was finding is the gearing. I was finding that I wasn't using the number of gears that was on the bike, the weight of the bike, right? I found it was too bulky. It was very difficult to store and move around. Practicality just wasn't right in that respect. And it took up too much space. And the other element was I was using it for commuting, and I was finding that my commutes were taking maybe a little bit longer than maybe I thought it should. I mean, maybe there's a competitive element in that. Maybe there's a bit of Strava play in there, possibly. So that helped me set my criteria. And actually what my criteria is that it had to be fast, right? So the bike had to be fast, whatever that meant. I don't know what that meant at the time, but it was something that would allow me to get to my destination, specifically commuting within an hour. That was my target goal. If I could do that, then I would be very happy. The bike would have to be lightweight, streamlined, and the handlebars. For some reason, when I would see people riding their bikes, I'd see people with like drop down handlebars, right? And this bike that I had, they gave me this like a curved handlebar. That was cool, but those ones looked pro, as you can say, right? Some things that you see on TV. And then it had to have a bit of orange, really. Right? I think the orange was something
And
that
what was it about the orange? Why orange?
I think that's one of my colors, to be honest. But I just think it makes me
Makes you
I don't
happy.
know, makes me happy, man. Just having a little bit of orange. So nice to
Sure.
find it, actually. So I was happy with it.
Just to change subject slightly, or follow
Yeah.
a particular theme. I guess again, some of our listeners might be thinking, okay, well, type of bike, right? There's all these different types, hybrid, gravel, road bike, flat handlebar, drop handlebar. What would you say, Zabs, about trying to understand what type of bike would be useful? And depending what people want to ride, how they want to ride, really.
I think, and this is where it comes down to, like, not maybe investing so much upfront initially, so you get a feel of just being able to ride around. Because I think what happens with time, and obviously it's happened with me in particularly. I mean, I bought a bike for commuting purposes specifically, but I ended up using it for club rides, and that became the primary purpose, especially when we think about COVID. Once COVID hit and we were working from home, the commuting aspect stopped. And now thinking about commuting just makes me feel like, oh, do I ever want to do that again? Really, I probably would, because I'm Yemen and we like to save money and not take the train. So, but from the perspective of, using it, you establish a joy in specific types of fields. So for me, it's road cycling. Someone else, it may be going on gravel terrain or more dirt terrain or mountain type of terrain. So you got to kind of understand what works, and obviously then you've got specific bikes that are for that. But now you can find bikes that are a little bit more all round as well, which will facilitate for all. But I think it comes with time and just experience.
And say, to change the question slightly again, say you're a family, you've got 1 or 2 young kids, you're keen to kind of get them into cycling. How would you advise they start having a think about that?
So I've got 2 young ones, and I kind of went to the deep end, really. They were riding with the training wheels. One day I decided to take them off. I mean, and it took a little while. I took like a week or so for them to get comfortable. I think it's the core stability, right? So they're not used to, before they're used to having something that's supporting their core, right? Whereas now they've got nothing and they're having to kind of hold themselves up, keep themselves on the bike. And that takes a little bit of time for the muscles to develop. But I found that over a very short period of time, Amina was able to, ride a few steps at a time and really make strides. And I did the same thing with the boy as well, and it worked well. So
whereas my 2, I've also got 2 young children. So what I started with was trailers. So I put them into a trailer, and sometimes my wife would pull it. Hopefully not all the time. Sometimes I'd help out and I'd pull it as well. But that's how I started getting them into it. And then, like you say, getting the smaller sort of bikes, the kiddie bikes, the balance bikes, trying to help them sort of develop that. And then from then you just obviously go up the scales and get the kind of bigger bikes. One thing I would say as well that I'd recommend if you're interested in getting your kids into cycling is alhamdulillah, there are a number of courses and things out for free out there. So if you check with your local council, sometimes they run cycling proficiency courses for kids. A lot of times they can be free, and if you sign up, it's a great way to to get your kids into cycling, and also getting comfortable with cycling, right? Again, as parents, Zabs and I both parents, you can be a little nervous about getting your kids out on the streets, but just having that proficiency course, I think, really helps them get confident riding the bike. And I certainly, I don't know what it is, certainly I spent months trying to get my 2 cycling, and it took a very long time. I take them to one of these courses, and literally within 10 minutes, they've got them cycling around the car park.
Wow.
So so they've got some sort of magic as well. I don't know in terms of the instructors, but I think what you will find is definitely worth looking at.
I mean, from that experience, all I remember is my back hurting having to kind of kneel down and making sure that you're holding onto the back of the seat while they're kind of going around. But yeah, so if you can get someone else to do it, then better, right?
Just conscious we're just obviously finishing the show very shortly, Zabs. Just give our listeners a flavour of, I guess what kind of topics we're going to cover over the next few weeks. And
actually, a very good question. But we've got a range of topics. I mean, we're going to be talking about, things like women cyclists, women getting into cycling, how they can get into cycling. We're going to probably try and have some special guests on the show as well. We're conscious of, obviously, the time is very short, but possibly someone from a Hajj rider, someone from the local community as well. We've heard someone's built their own bike. So that'd be really interesting to kind of have a conversation with them. And from there, we'll just take it from there, really.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And inshallah, we'll speak again tomorrow in part 2.